Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where we are currently working on the design of our Falcon 9 rocket, and I'm not entirely happy with it, to be clear. It's a little bit too wide at 2.5 meter, but I decided for the 2.5 meter fairing specifically for the Mark 1-3 command pod. That's the closest command pod that we have to the Dragon capsule. I mean, there's also the Mark 2 lander can that can hold 2. That might be an interesting thing to do as far as the trunk section goes. So instead of having like this RCS fuel tank, we could have a Mark 2 lander can down here. I don't know. I'm not 100% sold on that. I'm also not 100% sold on having this be powered entirely by thruster blocks. That's not necessarily ideal. There should be some amount of RCS in there, I think. But what we really need to do is we need to test out the changes. Oh, did I not save the changes that we made previously? Apparently not. Okay. Well, the previous changes were that we dropped this Rockamax X232, and we moved half of the fuel down. So this X16 ends up going here, and then we have a second X16 that went right here. And then that would be, I think, just a white tank, kind of like that. And then I believe the air brakes were moved up. Okay. And we also, of course, changed out our engines. We needed more powerful engines because this first stage was underpowered. It might be underfueled at this point, and that's something that we'll have to test to determine. But let's just drop the swivel engines here. We know that we wanted stronger engines than that. And this is because of the 2.5 meter fairing, right? So we ended up going, I believe, with like the skiff engine. So if we compare that to the T-45, it is a fair amount more powerful. It's also a fair amount larger. So we went down in size to the compact size, or the 1.25 meter size, but I think it's just the full-on compact size. Yeah, that's the one we went down to. And at this point, if we look at this, I believe we're at like 1.88. It's a lot of thrust to weight, and we may want to just run this as is. To prevent what happened before, I'm just not going to have crew in here. We shouldn't have had crew in there to begin with, but it just automatically put them in there. This is planned to be reverted, and the question is, will we be able to survive a return here? Well, one thing that I'm interested in potentially is saving like this fuel here for our return journey. I'm not sure exactly how we'd go about doing that, but that is kind of a header tank sort of concept, right? Let's see how this flies. I'm not necessarily expecting this to be perfect at this time. If it is perfect, wonderful, but if not, I'm expecting it to be a little bit more in this design phase. The Falcon 9's recovery portion is what complicates this. No doubt about that. But I do want to have it be a similar amount of recovery. Again, we're not going to be landing on drone ships. We're not going to be returning to launch site. But I want to just see what this ends up looking like. So let's see what kind of power we have. I'm expecting this to be tremendously powerful off the pad at 1.89. The real question is, how quickly do we burn through this fuel, right? We can see we have about 90 seconds of burn time. So let's go. That is definitely more powerful off of the starting block. No doubt about that. But I'm just wondering if we have enough fuel here. We may need to make some alterations to our power system for this, but we'll find out. So we need to retain probably, what, like at least 20 seconds of burn time in this stage in order to land it. So that is a fair amount of burn time, right? So I'm just going straight up for right now. We're definitely getting a fair amount of speed. No doubt about that. I'm going to start heading over to the horizon here, checking our gimbaling. This is way less gimbal support. I'm just trying to yaw directly over. It's a lot less maneuverable. That's not necessarily a bad thing. So we can see that we have an apoapsis height right now of about 50 kilometers. 60? 70. Okay. This thing is not wanting to really remain on this position. Kill rot, please. Noted. Okay, what we want to do right now is we want to separate this. So with that separated, this is just going to head over to prograde, or really over to like horizontal velocity up, and it's going to start to burn. But this is going to be a hypothetical. For right now, I want this guy to head over to retrograde. Although I don't think we can really effectively get there. But we should definitely deploy our air brakes at this time to help us steer. Okay, so this is supposed to be burning here, right? And we can see that time to apoapsis is going down, but we have like a minute and a half. So that's okay for the moment. I'm just going to leave this burning in this state for right now, and we're going to come back over to here. We're attempting to make our way over to orbital retrograde. We are currently in space, so we can definitely do that. So let's just make our way over to retrograde. And this is very much suborbital. Okay. I want to swap back over to the other vehicle here. That is, of course, this guy. And we left that in a burning state. The question is it still burning? Because it left our sphere of being able to switch, right? So we have a loading screen. The answer is no, it did not continue to burn. Noted. So we need to build up a lot of speed here. The other vehicle might actually crash in this time, and that's the major concern right now. So we may end up elongating that first stage a little bit more in order to get it a little higher up, in order to have enough time to do what we need to do here. So what I'm going to do right now is we're going to keep an eye on the position of the Falcon 9 probe. For right now, it's doing quasi-okay. We need to get this into an orbit, although it's accelerating nicely. There's no doubt about that. It's nearly up to orbital velocity here. This is going reasonably well, actually. The Falcon 9 probe is still not back into the atmosphere. And we can see our time to apoapsis is increasing here. No, this is working well. Okay, we're going to call that good. That is in an orbit. And now we are going to swap back to the Falcon 9 probe. And that's going to need to do a bit of a re-entry burn. I want to keep probably somewhere around 5 to 10 meters per second, or not meters per second, 5 to 10 seconds of burn left in this. And we're not going to have to go up all that much, but we're definitely going to want to do a re-entry burn here fairly soon. We're just slowly orienting around to retrograde. So we've got 17 seconds of burn here. I'm going to burn probably 10-ish seconds on re-entry. But the question is, we're not actually going all that fast right now. Do we even need a re-entry burn? That's an interesting question. Now, we could definitely do one right now. And this would not need to be a very strong burn. We can just burn it somewhere around here. So our thrust to weight is currently 1, if we do that. Okay. I'm just going to do something like this. We can see our meters per second here is fairly significant. So I'm just going to bring us down to maybe like 750. We don't need to slow down all the way. We just need to slow down far enough so that our air brakes don't actually get like torn off by the forces here. So we can see that we burned about 4 seconds there. Okay. I want to be at surface velocity minus here. Okay, we are overshooting our surface velocity here. So we have a little bit of attitude control issues. We'll have to do burns here and there, I think, in order to bring this back. That said, it should stabilize as we enter these thicker portions of the atmosphere. Now, we're not slowing down very much right now, but now we're beginning to slow down due to the aero brakes. We're still about 15 kilometers up. 10 kilometers up. And we're down to 700 meters per second due to the air brakes. We're 5 kilometers up. Commencing braking burn a bit. It's a little early, I know, but I got a little jumpy. We've got 10 seconds of burn time left here. And we're still moving pretty quick. Let's just slowly decelerate this. Okay. That's maybe a little bit too much. Okay, attitude control is going to be an issue for us, but we got that. Fantastic. So we're able to recover this, which I'm actually going to do. We're going to recover that. At this point, because of the switching, we can't revert, right? We would have to go back to the previous save, but that's fine. So we recover this, and that was basically a successful Falcon 9 test. At least with this, like, prototype version of the Falcon 9. I'm sure we'll refine it in future. But that was honestly a pretty successful test. It delivered the payload to orbit. Ish. It delivered the payload to suborbit, anyway, which is what it was supposed to do. And then we were able to recover that first stage. So now we can hop into the tracking station. And we can... Oh, we still have some International Space Station plane debris. I guess we can recover that. And then we can grab the Falcon 9 here. And that should have, at this point, that should have its solar panels deployed, which I didn't deploy before we switched back, and I probably should have, in retrospect. So that is something that we can change in future. So, of course, solar panels get deployed here. Cannot deploy while stowed. Okay, so they are clipped in a little bit too far. Noted. We've got plenty of electric charge for this orbital flight. I think that's reasonably fine. So I'm just going to hop over to the periapsis, and we're going to do a quick recovery test here. So we're going to add a maneuver at the periapsis. And we're going to bring this on down to somewhere around 10 kilometers or so will probably be sufficient. Okay, so we'll align to that node. And we'll have to exit this orbit fairly soon due to our electric charge issue. So these photovoltaic panels just can't be clipped in quite that tightly. That's okay. So we'll warp on around. We've got 159 meters per second only in this tank. So it's definitely a little bit concerning. We have a lot of monoprop here. I don't love this being a monoprop-driven design. I'll be honest. You know what we should do? We should not do this burn yet. We should ditch the second stage here. Like this. And I think that I might re-extend the second stage. That definitely feels a little small. But I want to see what it looks like if we go to orbital retrograde and we just monoprop this down. So how much do we actually change this by? I mean, it's relatively significant, but it's certainly low thrust to weight, right? There's no doubt about that. It's absolutely low thrust to weight, but it does do the trick. And we do have a lot of monoprop. There's no doubt about that. So this would get us around, but it is certainly slow. So if we were to physics warp this, yeah, we're going to run out of electric charge relatively soon, but that's okay. We are in a terminal orbit now, and I just want to continue to decelerate this until our periapsis height is much, much lower. Now, keep in mind that our trunk section is where our monoprop is. So if we were to jettison this, this wouldn't work. However, we could use our Super Dracos to help decelerate us, which is an interesting option. I wonder how much that would end up doing. Probably quite a bit. Let's do this and give it a go. It definitely did. So that dropped us quite extensively. No doubt about that. Now, to be clear, this is not how that's intended to be used. At this point, I'm going to ditch our trunk section, and we're just going to re-enter the atmosphere like this. So our electric charge basically is what it is. We can't recharge that at all, but it should be enough to get us down. So we're just going to warp forward a bit here. I want to be positioning on surface velocity minus. And at this point, we may want to consider putting our remote guidance unit into hibernation. I don't know. I think it's probably okay. We probably have enough. So we're just going to be coming on down here, and this would be, in theory, a full Falcon 9 flight. Not without problems, but a successful flight nevertheless. We successfully found out some issues, and we also had a successful flight. Assuming that this landing is successful. The only concern right now is electric charge, and that is only because we were not able to deploy our solar panel. I do think boosting our power levels slightly in our first and second stage would be good. We have some headroom there, so that's reasonably fine. I think we're going to be fine on the electric charge as well. This wouldn't necessarily be fine if we were going to the ISS, to be clear. And also, to be clear, there should be a docking port inside of here. So that is a minor difference there, for sure. We're slowing down. This is supposed to be a splashdown, of course. This pod is not necessarily designed for a land landing. It's designed for a water landing. So I'm a little bit concerned right now about parachutes. We'll probably have to rework our parachute system to toss in the docking port. I'm also a little bit concerned as of this moment about our power. That needs to get dealt with. And by that I mean two different things. We have the issue with the solar panels, and we also have the issue with our first stage, I think, is just ever so slightly underpowered, and our second stage is as well. Okay, so we can, at this point, get our drogues out. In fact, this is all of our shoots at once. Cool. So that will slow us down nicely, and this is definitely a successful recovery. We don't need to be controlling our rotation anymore. That's for sure. So this is certainly a successful Falcon 9 flight. There is no doubt about that. And we're just going to bring this guy right on down. I think we're going to have to replace our parachute situation. We're going to have to change around our solar panels a little bit. And I'd like to address the power levels at our first and second stage. That felt like it came down really fast. Were we still in physics warp? I'm not sure. That definitely felt like it came down really fast, but it did survive. Did the heat shield? No, the heat shield and other bits down there did not survive. So clearly the parachute was insufficient. Is the Mark 25 drogues? It kind of looked like drogues, to be honest. I think it is. So the parachute situation definitely needs to be dealt with. However, that was a successful flight. No doubt about it. Not a fully successful flight, but the mission parameters were achieved. There were issues, which we expect in a shakedown flight. So let's bring this on back, and we are able to recover a decent amount of the cost. It was like $30K for the first stage. I think a little above $30K. And then for the second stage, we'll recover more later, because that parachute situation was problematic, for sure. But we did recover about another $3K there. So call it probably 35-ish K for that one. And I mean, overall, this, and keep in mind, we're privately funding the development of this, so we're not getting any payments for this. 35K out of, how much is the total cost of the Falcon 9? It will definitely be higher than that, but it's a lot cheaper than the shuttle. Yeah, 61K. That's a whole lot cheaper than the shuttle. Okay, so I want to do a couple of things here. First off, I want to add a little bit more fuel into this stage. I'm going to add another X-16 here. And in fact, this should be then a 32. That will be slightly more efficient. So a 32 here, just in terms of cost, slightly more efficient. So that adds in a little bit more oomph into this bottom stage. We'll have a little less thrust to weight, but we'll be able to burn a little longer. And that will be absolutely useful for us. Then we will put back our air brakes right there. Cool. And then from there, I want to extend our top stage a little bit as well. Something kind of like that. So proportionally, this is, I think, about right-ish, but it's definitely not perfect, right? No doubt about that. I want this to be white, and then I would like this to be full black, but unfortunately, that's not an option. Well, really, I'd like this to be white, and then this to be full black, but that's not an option. And then this I'd like to be black to about here, but again, not an option. We cannot do that. So that's definitely interesting. I don't love the skiff as the engine of choice here. It's good thrust to weight, don't get me wrong, but it is not as good at vectoring as the swivel is. So if we look at the swivel's vectoring, the vectoring range is 3. And then if we look at the skiff, the vectoring range is 2. Now, we could take this to the, skipper. That would be a lot more powerful. It would also be about twice as expensive of an engine. This would be able to lift a lot more fuel, and we wouldn't want this to go to the compact variant, like that. So this is definitely, it clips together less. But look at how much more expensive that is. 91K versus 60K. It's not ideal. That said, we're going to be able to recover these skippers most of the time anyway, if we don't fail our recovery. So that shouldn't be that big of a deal, in theory. 3.52 thrust to weight is way too much thrust to weight. So these engines are certainly overkill. They gimbal nicely though, and I would like to thrust limit them down to, I don't know, maybe 50% here. That puts us at 1.96. And where's the center engine at? It's kind of hard to select. There we go. We'll thrust limit that one down to 50% as well. So that puts us at 1.76, about the same thrust to weight as what we had previously, with 90 seconds of burn. So that's a similar amount of burn time. So the skiff has a ISP of what? Where's the ISP? Why am I missing this? Okay, here we go. So 265 at sea level. At sea level is what we're interested in. The skipper has an ISP of 280 at sea level, so it is a more efficient engine. Cool. Well, I think we get a few extra seconds of burn at a similar thrust to weight ratio, but that is with lifting additional fuel as well. So that is definitely something to think about. We're not only lifting the additional fuel in this first stage, we are lifting additional fuel in this second stage, and this really should be a X232. Okay, so something along the lines of that. Now, we do need to fix our photovoltaic panel problem. So let's get that down to dual symmetry, and we'll just put that right about here or so. I don't like how they're sticking out. That was why we clipped them in before, but unfortunately that meant that we couldn't deploy them. Maybe we should just have them be like this. I have a feeling that they are, well, they're not going to be deployed, right? So we can position them slightly in like this so that they're not, they don't have problems. It's not perfect, but nothing ever is. So I think we're getting very, very close to having our Falcon 9 design completed here. We're not quite there yet. We do need to address the situation on the chutes. So I want to head into here. We've got this shielded docking port, and that's what we're going to end up using on our nose cone, of course. So the shielded docking port goes in here, like that. Phenomenal. And then we've got 2 drogue chutes on here, and then we'll need probably 2 main chutes as well. So I kind of want to move our drogue chutes to be here and here. I don't want to block the airlock, obviously. But the chutes can go somewhere, I don't like that positioning, somewhere around here. And then we're going to need 2 main chutes as well. So we're going to have radial mount drogue chutes, not drogue chutes, radial mount parachutes. We're going to put those approximately right here. I feel like that works. It doesn't block the... It doesn't end up blocking the command pod. We could also have the drogues be up over here so that it's just slightly more symmetrical. Okay, let's turn off snapping for the moment and put the drogue right about there. I don't really like it blocking this window, though, so I'm going to undo that. I think it'll be fine where it's at. It doesn't matter what orientation we're at when we hit the water, or even the ground. So this should be relatively okay, in theory. I hope. Something along the lines of this is basically what we're looking for our Falcon 9. So I think we need to do one more test flight, and maybe this flight should be going to the station, but not carrying a payload and not docking to the station. Just travel to the station and return as proof of things like range, ability to intercept the station, all that fun stuff. So that is, I think, going to be our mission in the next episode. I'm going to make sure that I save this time. That'll be helpful. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamer, Shadow Wolf, Kentogan, Ali Lee, Upper Cumberland Gamers, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, Soccerman12 UK, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.